My boss called me in. Mike, after 25 years, we're forced to let you go. His voice dripped with arrogance like cheap motor oil. Clear out your toolbox by Friday. I calmly replied, understood. They expected begging, anger, panic. My name is Mike Sullivan. I'm 52 years old, licensed master electrician with Peterson Construction out of Denver. I'd been running their electrical department since before young Travis Peterson inherited the company from his old man 3 years ago. The subject line of that morning's meeting request had read, Personnel Discussion, Confidential. The message itself was one sentence, mandatory attendance, HR present. I'd known what was coming for months, but hearing it out loud still hit like a gut punch, wrapped in corporate speak. When old man Peterson passed away suddenly from a heart attack, the writing was on the wall. Frank Peterson had built his company on two principles. Quality work pays for itself, and good people are worth their weight in gold. His son Travis came back from business school with a completely different philosophy. The transition started slowly. Travis spent his first 6 months observing operations and analyzing cost structures. He'd walk through job sites with a tablet, timing how long tasks took, asking why we needed so many licensed electricians when helpers could pull wire just as fast. The old-timers started calling him Stopwatch behind his back. My friend Danny Kovac had been with Peterson Construction almost as long as me. 22 years as a journeyman electrician, solid as granite, and the best troubleshooter I'd ever worked with. We'd grab coffee most mornings before heading to our respective job sites, and Danny was the first to voice what we were all thinking. Kid's gonna ruin this place, Danny said one Tuesday morning, stirring sugar into his coffee. Yesterday, he asked me why I was using armored cable instead of regular Romex in the hospital renovation. I had to explain about fire ratings and code requirements for healthcare facilities. He just nodded and made notes on that damn tablet. His father would have known that, I said. Frank Peterson could read electrical schematics better than most electricians. Travis reads spreadsheets, Danny replied. That's all he sees. Labor costs, material costs, profit margins. Doesn't understand that some things can't be optimized. The changes accelerated after Travis hired Jenny Martinez as operations manager. 28 years old, fresh from McKinsey Consulting, armed with PowerPoint presentations about human capital efficiency and process optimization. Her first company-wide meeting was a masterclass in corporate buzzword bingo. We're implementing a comprehensive operational review, she announced to the assembled crew. Our goal is to identify redundancies and streamline workflows to maximize profitability per labor hour. I raised my hand. What does that mean in English? It means we're looking at every position to determine if the skill level matches the compensation level, she said with a practiced smile. Some tasks currently performed by master electricians could potentially be handled by lower-tier technicians. Danny leaned over and whispered, Translation, they want to fire the expensive guys and hire kids for half the money. The operational review took 3 months. Jenny and her clipboard became a constant presence on job sites, timing tasks, interviewing supervisors, and creating detailed reports about who did what and how long it took. She'd follow me around asking questions that showed a fundamental misunderstanding of electrical work. Why do you need to test circuits before working on them? She asked one day while I was troubleshooting a power distribution problem at the Meridian Tower. The blueprints show which circuits should be live. Because blueprints show what should be, not what is, I explained patiently. 20 years of modifications, additions, and repairs means the actual wiring rarely matches the original plans. Testing prevents electrocution. She made a note. How long does testing typically add to a job? However long it takes to not die, I said. She didn't laugh. The systematic undermining started in month 4 of Travis's reign. Small things at first. My company truck was reassigned to a newer employee for efficiency purposes. My parking spot was eliminated during a space optimization project. Overtime approval required additional documentation and Jenny's personal sign-off. Then came the big changes. The company's health insurance plan was switched to a high-deductible option to control costs. The retirement match was reduced from 6% to 3% due to market conditions. Holiday bonuses were eliminated to reinvest in growth opportunities. Each change was announced with corporate language about remaining competitive and adapting to market realities. What they really meant was, we're squeezing every penny out of this operation, starting with the people who built it. Danny and I started meeting for lunch instead of coffee. Easier to talk openly away from the office. They're setting us up, he said one afternoon at Murphy's Diner. Making conditions so miserable that people quit voluntarily? Saves them severance costs? Think they'll actually fire us? I asked. You? Definitely. You know too much, cost too much, and you've got too much influence with the crew. Me? Probably safe for now. I'm still 15 years from retirement, and I keep my mouth shut. But you're their biggest target. He was right. I'd been noticing the signs for weeks. My input was no longer requested for project planning meetings. New job assignments came through email instead of face-to-face discussions. When I raised safety concerns about corner cutting on the convention center expansion, I was told to focus on execution rather than policy. The final insult came when they hired Brad Kowalski as electrical operations supervisor. 26 years old, 2 years out of trade school, and a license so new the ink was still wet. His job description was suspiciously similar to mine, but with a 40% lower salary. He's here to learn from experienced professionals, Jenny explained when she introduced him. Think of it as mentoring the next generation. Brad was eager, polite, and completely out of his depth. He'd never worked on anything more complex than residential wiring, but Travis treated him like the future of the electrical department. Within 2 weeks, Brad was attending management meetings I'd been excluded from. They're grooming your replacement, Danny told me over lunch. Kid's smart enough to know he's being used, but he needs the job. Just got married, wife's pregnant, can't afford to turn down advancement opportunities. I didn't blame Brad. He was doing what any young electrician would do, taking opportunities as they came. But watching someone with 2 years' experience being positioned to replace me after 25 years was like swallowing broken glass. The harassment escalated in my final month. Every decision I made was questioned. Every job I completed was audited for process compliance. Jenny started attending my safety meetings, taking notes about my communication style and leadership approach. The breaking point came during the Meridian Tower maintenance call, a complex power distribution problem that had been plaguing the building for months. I'd traced it to an unauthorized junction box in the basement mechanical room. Someone had tapped directly into the main feed to power what looked like cryptocurrency mining equipment in the parking garage. I documented everything with photographs and electrical readings, then called the building manager. You've got theft of service happening, I told him. Someone's stealing about $36,000 worth of power annually, and they've bypassed all the safety systems to do it. When I submitted my report, Jenny questioned every aspect of my findings. How do you know it's theft? Maybe it's authorized but not properly documented? Did you check with the parking garage management? Have you considered that this might be a legitimate electrical load? It's a bootleg connection with no permits, no safety shutoffs, and no metering, I explained. It's stealing power and creating a fire hazard. That's not a gray area. I think we need a second opinion, she said. Brad, can you review Mike's findings and provide an independent assessment? Brad looked uncomfortable but nodded. He spent 2 hours in that basement with his new digital multimeter, taking readings and photographs. When he came back, he confirmed everything I'd reported, but Jenny still insisted on additional verification from an outside contractor. That's when I knew they were setting me up for termination. No matter what I did, how thorough my work was, or how accurate my findings were, they would find reasons to question my competence and justify my dismissal. I started preparing my defense that week. 25 years of documentation, carefully organized and meticulously maintained. Every safety violation I'd discovered and quietly fixed. Every corner that had been cut to save money. Every time management had told me to handle it quietly rather than pull proper permits. The Peterson construction files showed a clean, professional electrical contractor. My personal files showed the reality of construction in a competitive market where project managers were always looking for ways to shave costs and accelerate schedules. I'd always been careful to separate the two. Company files went in the company database. Personal documentation went in my own records. They owned the former, I owned the latter. Danny became my early warning system. Still attending management meetings, still trusted by Travis and Jenny, still able to overhear conversations about restructuring plans and operational changes. They're planning to announce your termination next Monday, he told me over lunch the Friday before. Jenny's been preparing documentation about performance issues and cost-benefit analysis. They're going to make it look like a business decision, not personal. What about severance, I asked. 2 weeks' pay and a COBRA form. They're calling it a position elimination due to operational efficiency improvements. Means they can hire Brad to do your job for half the money without admitting they fired you for being too expensive. That weekend, I finalized my plan. Not just documentation, strategic positioning. I'd spent 25 years learning how this industry worked, how regulatory agencies operated, and how safety violations were investigated and prosecuted. Phase 1 was legal protection. Sunday afternoon, I called my attorney, Bill Hendricks. I need whistleblower protection, I told him. I'm about to lose my job, and I've got documentation of systematic safety violations that could put people at risk. Colorado has strong protections for electrical safety whistleblowers, Bill said, especially if you can show a pattern of violations and cover-ups. What kind of documentation are we talking about? 25 years worth. Photographs, electrical readings, incident reports, and correspondence. Violations in every major building Peterson Construction has worked on. That could be substantial. Safety violations in commercial buildings carry serious penalties. If you're the one who reported them, you could be entitled to a percentage of any fines collected. Phase 2 was timing. I needed to be terminated before I filed any reports. Whistleblower protection is strongest when someone loses their job for refusing to participate in unsafe practices. If I filed complaints while still employed, it could look like I was trying to save my position rather than protect public safety. Monday morning came like a funeral march. The termination meeting was scheduled for 10 a.m. Travis had Jenny there with her clipboard, some HR consultant I'd never seen before, and a severance package that was insulting even by their standards. We've decided to restructure the electrical department, Travis announced, reading from a prepared script. Going forward, we'll be using a hybrid model of project-based contracting and internal supervision. More flexible, more cost-effective, better aligned with current market conditions. What about the maintenance contracts? I asked. The Meridian Tower, the Federal Building, the Convention Center? Who's going to handle the emergency calls? We've got that covered, Jenny said, not looking up from her notes. Brad will be supervising contracted electricians for routine maintenance. Most electrical problems are pretty straightforward. Our new model allows us to scale resources based on actual needs. I nodded slowly. What about the documentation? The building schematics, the modification logs, the maintenance records? We'll need you to transfer all company files before you leave, Travis said. Standard procedure. Everything needs to be properly documented for the transition. Of course, and I said, I'll prepare everything for handover. The severance package was exactly what Danny had predicted. 2 weeks' pay, a COBRA health insurance form, and a non-disclosure agreement that would have prevented me from discussing Peterson Construction's business practices with anyone, including regulatory agencies. I read through the NDA carefully while they waited. Standard corporate language about protecting trade secrets and competitive information. What they didn't realize was that safety violations weren't trade secrets. They were public hazards that I had a legal obligation to report. This non-disclosure agreement, I said, does it cover safety violations and code compliance issues? The HR consultant looked confused. It covers all aspects of Peterson Construction's business operations, standard language to protect the company's interests. I'm not comfortable signing something that might prevent me from reporting safety violations to regulatory agencies, I said. Colorado law requires licensed electricians to report hazardous conditions. Travis and Jenny exchanged looks. Let's table the NDA for now, Travis said. The important thing is the transition of files and responsibilities. We can work out the legal details later. I signed the termination papers without the NDA, shook hands professionally, and walked out of that conference room with my dignity intact and my legal options preserved. They had no idea what they'd just done. Phase 3 was documentation transfer. I spent Thursday and Friday cleaning out my workspace, loading my personal tools into my truck, and preparing the file handover. The company files were straightforward: basic electrical layouts, permit applications, standard maintenance schedules. Everything official and above board. My personal files were a different matter entirely. 25 years of photographs, detailed schematics, modification logs, and incident reports. Documentation of every corner that had been cut, every safety violation that had been quietly fixed, every unauthorized modification that had been installed to avoid pulling permits. On Friday afternoon, I delivered 3 boxes of company files to Jenny Martinez. Standard building layouts, maintenance schedules, contractor information, everything they needed to pretend they knew what they were doing. Is this everything? She asked, flipping through the folders. Everything that belongs to Peterson Construction, I said. The detailed schematics and modification logs are in my personal files, part of my ongoing professional development and license maintenance. We'll need those too, she said. I'm afraid those are my personal property, I said politely. Created on my own time, using my own equipment, for my own professional documentation. Colorado law is pretty clear about personal versus company property. She frowned at her clipboard. I'll need to check with legal. You do that, I said. My contact information is in the files. Have a good weekend. Phase 4 was regulatory reporting. Saturday morning, I began making calls. Denver Building Department first, then the State Electrical Board, then OSHA. Each agency was very interested in electrical safety violations, especially in high-occupancy commercial buildings. I need to report electrical safety violations, I told each intake officer. Multiple commercial buildings, systematic code violations, potential public safety hazards. I'm a licensed master electrician who just lost my job for refusing to participate in unsafe practices. Each agency scheduled inspections and requested detailed documentation. 25 years of evidence organized by building, categorized by violation type, cross-referenced with applicable codes and safety standards. Sunday afternoon, Danny called. They're panicking, he said. Spent all morning trying to figure out which files you took. Jenny's demanding that HR force you to return everything, but legal says they can't make you give up personal property. What about Brad, I asked. Kid's in over his head. They gave him your maintenance responsibilities, but he doesn't know where anything is. Spent 3 hours looking for the main electrical room in the federal building yesterday. Had to call the building engineer for directions. That's not his fault, I said. 2 years' experience doesn't prepare you for complex commercial systems. No, but Travis thinks it should. Kids working 12-hour days trying to figure out systems that took you decades to learn. He asked me for help, but I'm not supposed to talk to him about anything you used to handle. Phase 5 was tactical patience. Monday morning, I didn't answer my phone when Travis called. Tuesday, I let it go to voicemail. Each message was more desperate than the last. Mike, we need to talk. We've got some electrical problems at the Meridian Tower, and our contractors can't figure out what's wrong. Mike, this is an emergency situation. The building manager is threatening to terminate our maintenance contract. We'll pay you consulting rates. Mike, be reasonable. You know these buildings better than anyone. We need your help. Wednesday, the Denver Building Department conducted their first inspection. The Meridian Tower, starting with the basement mechanical room, where I documented the power theft. The inspection team found the unauthorized junction box exactly where I'd reported it, plus 17 other code violations that had been hidden behind ceiling tiles and access panels. Danny called that evening with an update. Building inspector was there for 6 hours, found everything you documented and more. Jenny was following him around with her clipboard, asking questions he couldn't answer. Travis showed up around noon, tried to charm his way through it. Didn't work. What about Brad? I asked. Poor kid looked like he was going to throw up. Inspector kept asking him technical questions about the electrical systems. Brad knows enough to recognize when something's wrong, but not enough to explain why it's wrong or how to fix it. Thursday brought the State Electrical Board inspection at the Federal Credit Union building. 23 violations, including several that posed immediate fire hazards. The building was cited for electrical safety violations, and Peterson Construction's permit was suspended pending review. Friday afternoon, Travis finally reached me. This time he sounded panicked. Mike, what the hell is going on? We've got building inspectors crawling all over our job sites. They're saying there are code violations everywhere. I wouldn't know anything about that, I said calmly. I'm not involved with Peterson Construction anymore. This is about your termination, isn't it? You're trying to sabotage the company. Travis, I'm going to give you some free advice. You might want to talk to a lawyer. When regulatory agencies start investigating safety violations, companies usually need legal representation. Good luck with that. I hung up and checked my email. OSHA had scheduled an investigation into worker safety violations at Peterson Construction job sites. The State Electrical Board was recommending criminal charges for knowingly allowing unsafe electrical work in commercial buildings. Phase 6 was financial leverage. Saturday, Bill Hendricks called with news about the whistleblower protection filing. Mike, this is bigger than we thought. The state is treating this as a major safety case. They're talking about revoking Peterson Construction's license permanently. What does that mean for me? I asked. It means you're protected from retaliation and you're entitled to a percentage of any fines or penalties collected. Based on the violations you've documented, we could be looking at substantial compensation. How substantial? Preliminary estimate is around $400,000 to $600,000. Safety violations in commercial buildings carry serious penalties, especially when there's a pattern of willful negligence. The following week brought a cascade of consequences. Peterson Construction was cited for safety violations at 6 different job sites. 2 buildings received occupancy restrictions until electrical systems were brought up to code. The company's bonding agency suspended their coverage. 3 major clients terminated ongoing contracts. Danny kept me updated on the internal chaos. Travis is basically having a breakdown, he told me over lunch. Jenny's trying to manage the crisis, but she doesn't understand the technical side. Brad's working 18-hour days trying to fix problems he's never seen before. What about the workers? I asked. Most of the crew is looking for other jobs. Nobody wants to work for a company that's under criminal investigation. The smart ones started updating their resumes the day the inspection started. You included? Already got 3 interviews lined up. 22 years of experience with Peterson Construction doesn't look as good on a resume when Peterson Construction is facing criminal charges. Phase 7 was the final blow. 2 weeks after the inspection started, the State Electrical Board revoked Peterson Construction's electrical contractor license. All ongoing projects were shut down immediately. The company's insurance carrier denied coverage for any claims related to electrical work. Travis Peterson was facing personal criminal charges for knowingly allowing safety violations in commercial construction. His MBA and his father's reputation weren't going to help him in criminal court. Bill Hendricks called with the final settlement offer. The state wants to close this case quickly, Usby said. They're offering $485,000 as your percentage of the fines and penalties, plus they're recommending you for a state safety award. What about Peterson Construction? I asked. Done. License revoked, criminal charges pending, assets being liquidated. The company won't survive this. And Travis. Plea bargaining, facing felony charges for endangering public safety. He's looking at prison time unless he cooperates fully with the investigation. I thought about that for a moment. 25 years of my professional life, and it came down to a kid with an MBA who thought he could optimize away decades of experience and institutional knowledge. What's the timeline on the settlement? I asked. 60 days. The state wants to make an example of this case. Show that safety violations have real consequences. 3 months later, I opened Sullivan Electrical Services, licensed master electrician, specializing in commercial building safety and code compliance. My first 3 contracts were buildings that had been previously serviced by Peterson Construction, clients who wanted to make sure their electrical systems were actually safe. I hired Danny as my senior journeyman, plus 2 apprentices who understood that electrical work isn't just about pulling wire and screwing in outlets. It's about keeping people safe, building things that last, and taking pride in craftsmanship. The State Safety Award sits on my office wall next to my master electrician license. The citation reads, "For exceptional dedication to public safety and professional integrity in the electrical construction industry." Danny and I were having coffee one morning when he brought up Brad Kowalski. Kid's working residential now, he said. Small contractor, mostly house wiring and service calls. Probably better for him anyway. He wasn't the problem, I said. He was just caught in the middle of someone else's bad decisions. Travis? Danny asked. Got 18 months in minimum security plus 5 years probation. Can't work in construction during probation period. Jenny went back to consulting, probably telling other companies how to optimize their operations. Sometimes I drive past the old Peterson Construction building. It's a cell phone store now. The Meridian Tower still stands downtown, full of people who have no idea how close they came to a serious electrical fire, or how many safety violations were quietly fixed over the years. But that's what 25 years of doing things the right way looks like. You build something solid, something that lasts, something that protects people. And when someone tries to tear it down for short-term profits, you make sure there are consequences. Because at the end of the day, there's a difference between an electrician and a master electrician. And that difference is worth more than any MBA will ever understand. Subscribe if you agree.